are Team MadMen. My name is Paige Campbell.
I'm Lucas.
And I'm Mike Deesh.
And the company that we researched was Ontario Systems. They look at integrated location solutions, so they do a lot of web mapping and fleet tracking. So Ontario Systems was formed in 2007. It was started by Patrick Campbell and Steve Milroy. Those who were originally part of a group of 4 freelance consultants that were just doing various projects on assisting in software development, getting a lot of deals that really involved a lot of mapping consulting, essentially. And Steve and Patrick realized that they wanted to take this and make it an actual company, actual venture. And so they started Ontario Systems in 2007. And what they recognized in all of the consulting jobs that they were getting is that it was really based on helping companies optimize their fleet systems, route planning, etc. Involved a lot of mapping, like I said. And so they made that the focus of Ontario Systems, and with that they created Fleet Savvy, it's called, and Route Savvy, which Lucas will talk about later when he discusses the products that are available. Currently they have a set of goals for the company, just in general, as well as financial goals. What they would like to do is further diversify their product line. Currently they have about 8 different products, as well as they still do consulting services, and they would like to continue with this half product, half service offerings. However, they would like to also increase the sales of what are products, because right now services make up for a majority of their sales, and they would like to increase the product proportion to that. Financially, they would like to double their revenue within the next 5 years, as well as make sure that Ontario is in a position that they can sell it as well in the next 5 years.
Okay, so as Paige said before, the opportunity for Ontario basically lies in the expertise that they harness in fleet tracking and web mapping abilities. And it's a relatively new market space, so they're kind of like a leading force in that. Their products consist of Map Savvy, which specializes with web mapping, which is kind of what you see here on the picture. Fleet Savvy, which deals with fleet tracking, so any kind of like for example, tracking trucks and kind of like their routes. And then Route Savvy, which is route optimization. And then there's Business Intelligence, which Ontario helps its clients better understand their own businesses and helps them make better decisions based on that information.
Okay, so Ontario has 6 employees, but it has 3 key personnel, and they are Steve and Pat and Robbie. Steve is the CEO, and he has a lot of connections and also the consulting experience to help run this business well. And Pat has he was the vice president of operations for another company for several years, so he is the chief operating officer. And Robbie is a certified technical person he was certified by Microsoft, so he's the chief technology officer. And the day-to-day operations take place on the internet. They are located all across the country. So, for example, Steve is in Colorado, but Pat is in Minnesota. So all their meetings and calls, mostly between themselves, mostly take place on the internet. But they also travel to meet clients to help them with their business intelligence. So in the future, they hope to have an established office in Colorado, but for now, all of their operations take place online. Their deliveries and their bill payments take place throughout the online world. So they use PayPal and QuickBooks. PayPal is for smaller businesses because it's easier for them to convert the monetary values to cash. And QuickBooks allows for credit, so big companies like JCPenney and venues that large, they use the credit that QuickBooks can give them, and so that's how they get their revenues through that. And because the delivery is immediate, the client purchases the product, and they give them a password, and so they can call the web client, and then the web client immediately delivers the service. So they get paid as soon as they deliver the product. And and so that helps their ratios for the receivables.
When it came time to do a lot of market and industry research, we noticed that Ontario Systems kind of transcended two very different industries. One is the geo-mapping industry, and the other is software development. For the purposes of this project, we've compared all the ratios and all the data to the software development industry. This industry, first of all, is massive. It's growing at a very, very quick rate, and there's a lot of excess cash within it because software has very low development costs but very high profit margins because they get a lot of their profits from licensing fees, and these fees are often paid continually. So where Ontario stands in this large industry, especially because there's big players like Microsoft, Oracle, and Adobe, they are more of a specialized software development company. They're in a niche in itself where they specialize in something, and normally a larger company will come along and kind of take in that smaller company, which is why Ontario is looking to sell their company within the next 5 years. These larger companies will come in and buy up the smaller specialized companies so they can make use of their technology. So when it comes to Ontario's customers, they have both very large brand name clients such as Starbucks, JCPenney's, and they also have smaller local businesses that might be just a delivery service that involves 15 trucks. So their customers kind of range in all shapes and sizes and all over the place. They have 3 specific marketing strategies. They rely heavily on word of mouth so that they create credibleness for their company. They have mailing lists that they send out monthly webinars to and newsletters so that customers constantly know what they're working on, what might be coming out next. And also they use web search optimization so that if a company searches, how do I make my fleet more optimizing, or however, Ontario pops up, and this helps drive traffic to their website.
So a quick competitive analysis. Ontario has an unmatched level of innovation and service in geographic info systems. The primary competitors are IDV, which specializes in web mapping, and then Viamente, which specializes in route optimization. Thing is, Ontario specializes in both, so they kind of have that advantage over those 2 companies. And so their strategy so far, their key competitive capabilities are that they're a smaller entity, so they're kind of more nimble in that industry, so they're kind of more flexible with their clients. They're working with Windows and web development, so they kind of have an advantage in the industry in that sense. And then crowdsourcing, which is kind of just getting people together to complete specific tasks. And then their key competitive weaknesses are their depth of personnel. As was mentioned earlier, they only have 6 team members, 3 executive and 3 below. And then they don't have a central office, which is a disadvantage. So they're kind of communicating long distance over the internet and video chat.
Okay, so let's just skip to my first. Let's just skip to the recommendations. Okay, so their solvency in the ratios, they have negative current assets and negative equity right now, but because their cash conversion cycle is so quick, the banks and their investors are allowing them to keep it's not a problem. So, but if they wanted to look for more financing in the future, it would be helpful for them to increase their net income and therefore their retained earnings. The equity partners take their salaries out of expenses, so it's just another expense. And so if that was reduced a little bit, it would be able to increase retained earnings and also to reduce the debt. Improving liquidity. Right now, they use the negative they use the credit that a bank will give them, and then they just pay that off real quickly. But they don't keep cash and current assets on hand. So if they just set a minimum for to have a certain amount of cash on hand, it would also help improve their liquidity immensely.
Questions?